Good morning, everybody, and happy Tuesday. We have an incredible lineup today. Robbie, who do we have?
Andrew Yang is going to be with us to discuss the Forward Party more in depth. Plus, Stephen Donziger is back with us. A judge has ordered him to a violent New York prison, but he's appealing it and will give us the latest on that, so you won't want to miss it.
But first, the Supreme Court on Monday ruled in favor of law enforcement by granting qualified immunity to police officers accused of using excessive force. The ruling appeared to be unanimous and doubles down on an extremely controversial aspect of the law, the notion that a Fourth Amendment right is not, quote, clearly established unless there's some very explicit precedent with nearly identical facts. The Fourth Amendment states people have the right to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Critics on both sides of the aisle agree that the ruling will create more problems for victims of police brutality. Robbie, were you surprised at the unanimity of this?
I don't know if it's surprising. It's unfortunate because fixing qualified immunity should be a bipartisan cause, should be something that everyone cares about. For progressives, obviously, there has to be dealing with the problems in policing. But even conservatives, these are unaccountable agents of the state, of the government. This is unaccountable government. You can't...
Right, and tell people what qualified immunity is for those who are just tuning into this concept.
Absolutely. Qualified immunity is a doctrine that generally prevents government employees, police officers, from facing lawsuits from people they might have wronged. The lawsuit has to clear a very, very high bar of misconduct on the part of the officer for you to even be able to proceed at all. Mm-hmm. So now they could be unfounded, and in the cases the Supreme Court didn't want to look at, it could absolutely be the case that the police officer did nothing wrong and would have been acquitted by a jury. Right. But you can't even make your case to a jury because the qualified immunity bar is so high, and that's the problem we're dealing with.
Because it says this is a government worker. As long as they're working on behalf of the public, you can't come after them personally.
Right.
Can you come after the city itself? Or
yes.
Right.
But those are hard cases to make. It's just and also the issue is that maybe police know they have this in their back pocket. Right. Perhaps some of the cases of misconduct that we've seen, of genuine police misconduct, might not have occurred if police knew they had to be a little bit more careful. Now, obviously, safety matters, and being a police officer is tough. It's a tough job, etc. We don't want them wrongly accused or railroaded or anything like this. But this is a protection that no one else has.
Right.
If you're just sued as a person, if you've wronged someone, you don't have qualified immunity to stop you from facing a lawsuit. The police are better trained to handle violent and unstable situations. So there should probably be a higher bar for their conduct. There's actually a lower bar because they're so shielded from liability.
And the issue of qualified immunity is what derailed the bipartisan policing reform negotiations between Cory Booker and Tim Scott. Republicans were just unwilling to give on that question of qualified immunity, even after Booker said that he had gotten buy-in from some police associations, some police unions, to chip away at the protections that qualified immunity affords. That Tim Scott still refused to go there. It's a shield that the police are. It's a line that they just do not want to cross.
Yeah, I always try to tell conservatives, qualified immunity is the same thing that protects teachers and run amok university officials who are woke university, or the officials caving to woke students and harming free speech on campus. It's the same sort of shield that they have. If you want those people held accountable in cases of excess, but not the police, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and there's a contradiction there because the police talking point is always, these are bad apples. Don't paint all police with a broad brush just because of the wrong actions of a few bad apples.
Right.
But then you're like, okay, well then let us pluck those bad apples out. Like, whoa. No way.
Exactly.
They're immune.
Exactly.
These are police officers. So then, okay, well now you've brought it back to the institution. And then the response is, well, then we're just not going to do our job.
Right, exactly.
But please keep setting the paycheck.
Over at Reason Magazine, my colleague Billy Binion reports that the ruling is a major blow to qualified immunity reform. Billy explained, quote, qualified immunity allows state actors to violate your rights if the exact way in which they do so has not been ruled unconstitutional in a prior court ruling. It's shielded cops who shot kids, stole huge sums of money, and destroyed property. The list goes on. He went on to say that while the idea behind qualified immunity is that no reasonable cop can be expected to know when they cross a constitutional line unless there's a specific rule, precedent outlining that misbehavior, and added that the ruling gave cover to the police accused of brutality, overturning the prior opinions. So it's a protection that just goes too far. And again, in these specific Supreme Court cases, I looked at the details. You might have well concluded that the police behaved appropriately. One was a man with some kind of weapon, and his family was hiding in the room. And then police kneeled on him for too long. I think in the other case, the man with a hammer, some kind of weapon, was shot dead. So again, people making threatening gestures to others with weapons, it could be perfectly reasonable for the police to do something. But
in fact, cops get off all the time when they go to court.
Right.
You basically have to be the subject of global outrage,
right,
to get convicted of anything.
Right.
So even though the DAC is stacked so heavily in their favor, they still don't even want to go to the table and play the stacked game. Yeah,
which just doesn't it doesn't make we don't want to live, I don't think, in a society where public employees have so much. Private employees don't have this. Like, no one has this level of extra non-accountability except the police. Yeah. And it's just not, it doesn't.
Yeah, and so Waleed Shahid, who's with Justice Democrats, was making this point yesterday that we are on the precipice of having the greatest mobilization on behalf of racial justice in the streets in history unfold, not just in the U.S., but across the world. And we'll have zero federal legislative response, and largely as a result of being unable to resolve this qualified immunity case. In the 1960s, there were marches, there were protests, public opinion was moved, and once public opinion was moved, Congress was able to move, passed the Civil Rights Act, passed the Voting Rights Act, passed the Housing Rights Act. This time around, there will be some legislation that gets through city councils around policing reform, but no federal response.
Yeah. In some circumstances, government officials receive qualified immunity. It's just, actually, I wonder if you agree with this, Ryan. I think the explicitly racial focus of the criminal justice reform, the police brutality movement in the last decade, has possibly done it at a disservice. Obviously, it's been good for hashtags and for getting young people interested and involved. But if you want to make the right, Republicans, et cetera, on board with this packet of reforms, I think the idea that anyone can suffer a negative police outcome. This is about government accountability. This is about limiting government. I think that was a better pitch than this is about white supremacy. This is about black bodies. The kind of language that activists have used to really cast it in explicitly racial terms, I think may have caused the sides to just coalesce in a way, to not coalesce,
I see that in two ways. One is that from a cynical perspective, the country's 70% white or whatever, and so policies that appeal to white people in a country that is majority white are probably going to have the most success in that country. That's granted. On the other hand, before the movement for Black Lives really launched in 2013, 2014, there wasn't a whole lot of progress being made on policing reform, and you were seeing militarized policing really get completely out of control, and you were seeing police brutality increase. Since the Black Lives Matter movement, you actually have seen a significant decline in police shootings. And so if part of the movement was around saving black lives at the hands of police, then it was partly effective if you look at the numbers. That's not reflected in our national conversation, but that is what the numbers show. I do think that there's probably a missed opportunity to build some coalitions. I grew up as a poor white kid in a rural area, and cops are absolutely brutal and to poor white kids as well. Like there is a tension there among that class of kids and the police. So I got the anti-policing movement immediately.
Right.
Like it was not something that I had to kind of educate myself on. And so there was that opportunity, I think, for a coalition, and I think that coalition is still there for the taking. So I think it's complicated.
It is complicated. Yeah. We'll tell you what's on our radars coming up next. Stay with us.